Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Sunday service. My name is Nayaswami Jayanti, and this is Nayaswami Babani assisting me, and it's our great joy to be with you and share Sunday service with you this morning. Before we get into the topic at hand, I just wanted to say I don't know, I wasn't here, couldn't hear the announcements. Was David Eby's concert announced?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to add a little something to that. I was speaking with Ramesha, and many of you know Ramesha. He and Bhagavati, his wife, are the choir directors up at Ananda Village, along with Jeannie. And I was speaking with him on Friday, and he was saying that Jyotish and Devi have asked them this year, for the remainder of this year, and I guess probably into next year, to really make the music ministry known far and wide for what it is, a music ministry. When Swamiji channeled the music that came to him, all 400 and something pieces of it over the years that he was in the body, he would almost never refer to it as his music. Divine Mother gave him that music because it has the power to change people's consciousness. And it is in its own right a ministry. And I wanted to mention that today because David Eby's coming and sharing some of Swami's music tomorrow evening. David happens to be an extremely talented cellist as well as a vocalist. And he studied very closely with Swamiji for a number of years before Swami passed, and studied about the music, had an opportunity to be with him and ask him many questions about the music and really tune in to what it was that Swami wanted, as have other choir directors also under his tutelage. But I just wanted to mention that because we sing every Sunday morning, we sing Swami's music, and some people may ask, why do you sing only Swami's music? I mean, there's lots of beautiful music. I mean, Handel's Messiah, there's lots of beautiful music. But this particular ray of Ananda is a channel for Master, and it came through Swamiji, and that music is a very important part of that ray. So I would hope that many of you can come tomorrow night and really tune in and enjoy the power of that music. And if you feel it in your hearts, I would ask you to take the next step and start listening more to his music, even on your own. There's many, many CDs that we have in the boutique that have Swamiji's music on it, choir pieces, solo, instrumentalists. But the music is a power in its own right. Divine Mother comes through it in a particular way, and it really has the power to change consciousness. You know, when you're giving a talk to somebody about Master's teachings, you have to deal with their mind. The mind can argue, yeah, well, that may be a good point, but I don't think that's true. That doesn't ring true with me, I don't know. But when they feel the music, it changes their consciousness. It bypasses the cognitive mind and touches the heart in a way that people are totally transformed. Over the years, many, many, many times, I have talked to people who said when they first came to Ananda, they really were attracted by Master's teachings, they felt Master's teachings, they felt they belonged there, but it was the music that opened their hearts. So I just wanted to say that as sort of a prelude, if you will, to David Eby's coming, and also to come later. Ramesha is going to come down and with Chaitanya work with the choir here on some more refinements of Swami's music, and hopefully over time more of you can be more involved. And I don't mean just join the choir and stand up here and sing. That's not necessarily for everyone. But listen to his music. Sing his music in the privacy of your own home, even if you only do it in the shower. God is listening. Nobody else really matters. But it can change your consciousness. It came up in my mind strongly because Ramesh had mentioned this to me. I take voice lessons from him every 2 weeks on Skype. So I told him about, a few years ago, we used to have a music retreat once or twice a year at Ananda Village. And all the choir members from all the colonies that could come would come, and we would spend the whole weekend just focusing on Swami's music. And I noticed the second time I went up for a retreat, I was making a comparison. The times that I have gone up and gone into seclusion, I noticed that I have a process I have to go through. It's like, okay, I disconnect from all the electronic tethers. I leave all that stuff behind at home. I take spiritual books with me. I go up there. I try to eat lightly. And it takes me 2 or 3 days to kind of completely relax to where I can go very deep in meditation. But I noticed when I went up for these music retreats, after singing Swami's music for just 1 hour, I could sit and meditate extremely deeply as though I'd been in seclusion for 2 weeks already. It has a power that is perhaps understated, perhaps we don't focus on it enough, but I just wanted to bring it to light because it's very, very important. It's a critical part of the ministry that we do here at Ananda, is sharing that music. And it isn't just Swami Kriyananda's music. He was the channel that Divine Mother picked to send it into this world, but she sent it into this world for a very particular purpose, and that's to change people's consciousness. So, just wanted to mention that. We are all made of vibration. So singing that music helps us get in tune. So the topic for today is the redeeming light. Thank you. So light is a very interesting concept. It is one of the 8 aspects of God that is mentioned in the Gita and by Master also, and of course Swamiji. And it's probably the second manifestation of God that came to light. The first was the Word, right? In the beginning was the Word. Well, the Word was the vibration of Om. God had to manifest himself, herself, out of something, so it was consciousness, because everything in this world is made of consciousness. So God sent out, if you will, a vibration into manifestation, and that vibration had a sound. And the sound we call Om. In the Bible, they call it the Word, because it was an utterance, it was a vibration. But then God said, let there be light. And light is a very, very powerful manifestation of the divine. This chapter, or reading from the Bible, the people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them hath the light shined. It's interesting to think about it, because we're all familiar with light. We have electric lights, we have sunlight, we have light in our world, and we have a familiarity with that light. But what is this light that was able to completely transform the consciousness of the people that it visited? What an incredible power. It says that in the Old and New Testaments there are over 100 references to the word light. Now, I didn't go back and count how many references there are in the Bhagavad Gita, but it's probably close to the same number. I'm sure that in Autobiography Yogi it's close to the same number, because light is such a powerful manifestation of the divine. And yet this otherworldly light has been seen by countless saints and devotees around the world from all different religious backgrounds down through the ages. It's not something new, it's not just a metaphor, but what is it that makes it so transforming? Now, there is actually an objective justification for studying light. Scientists tell us that matter is actually a vibration of energy, and energy is actually light. The human eye only beholds a certain range, a certain spectrum of that physical light. But the eye of the soul, which we all have, however, is free of that material limitation. So when yogis see the spiritual eye and their body becomes full of light, as Jesus said, if therefore thine eye be single, thy body shall be full of light. You can talk to many Christians and ask them, what do you think he meant by that? And I've heard it translated, well, if your body's sound, then, your vision will be good. There's lots of different explanations that miss the whole point of the mystical truth behind that. But Christ meant that quite literally. If therefore thine eye be single, which means if you're seeing with the spiritual eye, not these two physical eyes, but the spiritual eye, your whole body will be full of light. And we have testimony from saints of all walks, all religions, all times, all ages, who have had exactly that experience. And it's provable if we all apply ourselves, we can have the same experience. It's not something that was a blessing that was given to the saints and the masters, and we can just sit in awe of how wonderful that was. No, it is part of our birthright. It is what we came to know. We came to know what that light is and to experience that light, to experience it in deep meditation, in the deep stillness, wherein our eye becomes single and our whole body will be full of that light. And the power of that light is to totally transform our consciousness. As the chant goes, change my darkness into light, Lord. It has that power to do exactly that. Now, there's lots of people in the field of science that would argue, well, this isn't provable. But, if you look at science itself, and I'm a registered nurse, I work in a scientific field, and, about every 10 years, scientists tend to reverse what they told you 10 years ago. Don't eat eggs, they're full of cholesterol, and then 5 years later, but they have lecithin in them, so you can still eat them. Just one example. But science is constantly changing its mind as new evidence comes to light. But with the saints, down through the ages, they don't have to go back and revise what they said, because what they said was given to them from God, and it came from the one truth, the same place. Even if they came from a tradition that was not mystical. Saint Teresa of Avila was meditating very deeply and had very mystical experiences, and she started experiencing in her deep meditations Christ as the formless Christ. Now, this wasn't something that was part of their tradition at the time, and her confessor warned her that, she could be perceived as a heretic. And she said, but, it's what I'm experiencing. I don't know what to say. And he says, well, hold your mind down to your prayers and keep focusing on those prayers. And she would just go off into ecstasy and experience the formless Christ. So no matter how often she tried to keep her mind down on the prayers, once she reached a certain level of upliftment, she was just carried into ecstasy, and she experienced the formless Christ. So finally he decided, well, in order to protect her, I better go start doing my research and see if there has been another saint at another time who might have had this same experience. And he found several hundred years earlier evidence that there was a saint in the church who had also experienced Christ as the formless Christ. So even when the saint comes from a tradition where there isn't that mystical experience, it's part of their current tradition, God has his own ways. and they all seem to experience this same kind of thing. Another more modern saint, Ananda, who, if you've read Autobiography of a Yogi, how many of you have read Autobiography of a Yogi? Wonderful. How many of you have not read Autobiography of a Yogi? Aha, you're in for a great treat. Wonderful. In Autobiography of a Yogi, when Yogananda had been in this country for a number of years, I think it was 12 years, and his guru called him back to India and said, it's time for you to come back. I want to see you. One of the saints he visited, because he visited many saints while he was there, was Ananda Ma. And Ananda Ma means the joy-permeated mother. And a dear friend of Master's told him that, she's visiting, she's in town, she's close. It would be really wonderful if you could go and see her. Master said, oh yes, I want to see her. So Master went to meet her. He'd never met her before in this lifetime. And so it was an interesting experience. When he saw her, at first she was standing in a convertible car, standing up with her head through the roof, greeting and blessing devotees. She was getting ready to leave town. And so she was saying goodbye to them, and she was blessing them. And as soon as she saw Master coming her way, as he and the people that were with him were walking towards him, she went up to him and she put her arm around his shoulder, put her head on his. In fact, you can see this picture of her here is probably much as she looked then. And she said to him, having never met him before in this lifetime, "Father, you have come." How did she know who he was? You know, very powerful. Now, Anandamayi Ma was not a highly educated woman. She was a Brahmin, she was from the highest caste, and she could have had education, but she did not have any formal education, and she was essentially illiterate. And yet, Master knew instantly in that meeting that she had attained a very high state of samadhi. And in fact, she said, "Come, Father, come in and sit down." And he says, "Well, I'm detaining you from leaving." And she says, "Father, this is the first time I am seeing you after many ages. Please don't go." Now, who knows how many times before they had met, but she knew. And it's interesting what he says. Let me see if I can tell you exactly what he said. I'll come back to it in a minute. But at any rate, she knew that they had met before. She knew that they were friends from many, many lifetimes before. And what Master said about her at that point was, "I had instantly seen that the saint was in a high state of samadhi. Utterly oblivious to her outward garb as a woman, she knew herself as the changeless soul. From that plane she was joyously greeting another devotee of God. She led me by the hand into her automobile," and that's when he protested. "I'm keeping you from your journey." And she says, "Father, I'm meeting you for the first time in this life after ages. Please don't go." And later, one of her disciples described to Master that he told her that the Blissful Mother travels widely in India. In many parts, she has hundreds of disciples. And she has put out much effort to bring many desirable social reforms and brought many people a much better way of life because of her efforts. And he also added that because Anandamayi Ma was always in ecstasy, or mostly in ecstasy, she didn't even care if she ate. They would bring her food and put it in front of her, but unless they fed her, she didn't care. Food, no food. She moved from place to place, offering blessings to people all over India. She had no attachment to where she lived or, whether she ate or she didn't eat. And they would feed her because they were afraid that she would leave her body if she didn't eat. Later, Master said, she asked him, "Where are you staying, Father?" And he says, right now I'm staying in Calcutta, but later I'm going back to America." And she said, "America?" And he said, "Yes, and the Americans would love to meet a woman saint. Would you like to come?" And she said, "If Father wants to take me, I will go." Just like that. But he didn't offer to take her after the fact because some of her devotees says, "Oh, we travel with at least 20 people, so, there's going to be 20 people coming with Ma if you take her, so, you need to keep that." And Master decided this might be a little impractical. So it turns out that she didn't come and visit. But later on, when Master was saying goodbye to her, before he left India the last time he saw her, he said she was getting ready to leave to go to the Himalayas. That she said that some of her disciples had built a hermitage for her there, and she was going to go and stay there for a period of time. And he says, "As she boarded the train, I marveled to see that whether amidst a crowd on a train, feasting, or sitting in silence, her eyes never looked away from God. Within me I still hear her voice, an echo of measureless sweetness. Behold, now and always, one with the eternal, I am ever the same." So many saints down through the ages, whether educated or not, whether literate or not, have been moved by God to take up the spiritual calling and then have experienced that divine light in many, many ways. Again, Jesus said, if therefore thine eye be single, thy body will be full of light. We all have that as our birthright. We're all moving in that direction. Master explained it in the Autobiography of a Yogi, and I try to take most of my stories today from Autobiography of a Yogi because we're also doing a big campaign at Ananda to try to get more people to read Autobiography of a Yogi, and if you've read it before, read it again. And if you've read it several times, read it again. Every time I read it, I find something in there that I could just swear that Master's rewriting the book in front of me because it wasn't there the last time, I know. But in the Law of Miracles chapter, Master explains, a yogi who through perfect meditation has merged his consciousness with the Creator perceives the cosmical essence as light. To him there is no difference between the light rays composing water and the light rays composing land. Free from matter consciousness, free from the 3 dimensions of space and the 4th dimension of time, a master transfers his body of light with equal ease over the light rays of earth, water, fire, or air. Long concentration on the liberating spiritual eye has enabled the yogi to destroy all delusions concerning matter and its gravitational weight. Thenceforth, he sees the universe as an essentially undifferentiated mass of light. Amazing. In a later chapter, Master describes an experience that he had shortly after entering the Swami order, in which this was during the time, it was around 1915, and it was during the time of the First World War. And he was sitting in his little meditation room at 4 Garpar Road in Calcutta, and all of a sudden he had a clear vision of the violence going on the battlefield. And he was just feeling tremendous sorrow for the suffering of those people, when all of a sudden he was teleported, if you will, into the body of a captain of a ship fighting in the battle. And all of a sudden there was this volley. I don't know what the weapon was that they used in the First World War, because I don't know enough about the history of that time, but it blew open the side of the ship and his ship went down and he was thrown into the water. And he was fighting, trying to get to shore, and he finally makes it to shore and he goes to stand up and a stray bullet hits him in the chest and he falls down and he's dead. And as he's sinking into unconscious, he's lamenting the fact that, and my body's gone, death is claiming me now. And all of a sudden, he was back in his meditation room, sitting there meditating, and was like, I'm alive, it's okay, I'm good, yeah, it's great. And then he meditated for a little while, and then he was back again in the body of the captain. And finally he says to Divine Mother, Lord, I prayed, am I dead or alive? And a dazzling play of light filled the whole horizon. A soft rumbling vibration formed itself into words. What has life or death to do with light? In the image of my light I have made you. The relativities of life and death belong to the cosmic dream. Behold your dreamless being. Awake, my child, awake. And Master said that was his most singular experience. He experienced many visions, but that was the one that moved him the most. Later in the chapter, he says, as I finished writing this chapter, I sat on my bed in the lotus posture. My room was dimly lit by 2 shaded lamps. Lifting my gaze, I noticed that the ceiling was dotted with small mustard-colored lights, scintillating and quivering with a radium-like luster. Myriads of penciled rays like sheets of rain gathered into a transparent shaft and poured silently upon me. At once my physical body lost its grossness and became metamorphosed into astral texture. I felt a floating sensation as, barely touching the bed, the weightless body shifted slightly and alternately to left and right. I looked around the room. The furniture and the walls were as usual. but the little mass of light had so multiplied that the ceiling was invisible. I was wonderstruck. This is the cosmic motion picture mechanism. A voice spoke as though from within the light. Shedding its beam on the white screen of your bed sheets, it is producing the picture of your body. Behold, your form is nothing but light. When Master visited St. Therese Neumann of Bavaria, when he was on that same trip, he went to Europe first and then on to India. And when he met St. Therese, it was interesting. Again, she wasn't where he thought she was going to be originally, and a friend said, oh, she's in this other town with this professor she often stays with. So they drove the next morning to that town. And the professor said, yes, Teresa is here. And Teresa sent a message down. The bishop told me not to see anyone without his permission, but I will see the man of God from India. Again, one saint knowing another. How did she know? She hadn't experienced any experiences with Hindu saints before, and yet she knew automatically. And during that conversation, Master asked her, because it was known that she did not eat. She did not eat or drink anything. The only thing that passed between her lips was a communion wafer, which she would take every morning at 6 o'clock. And then every Thursday, she would begin to experience the Passion of Christ, and Friday go through the crucifixion, and every Friday she would have a stigmata. She would lose, they say that she lost 10 pounds every week, but she would regain it miraculously. I mean, she didn't eat. Where did it come from? And so Master asked her, how is it that you've been able to sustain your body without having any food to eat, nothing to drink? How is it that you do that? And she said, I live by God's light. And Master even asked her, can you teach other people how to do that? And she says, oh no, God doesn't wish it. Other people can learn to do it, but she wasn't willing to teach. She says, one of the reasons I am here on earth today is to prove that man can live by God's invisible light and not by food alone. The deepest purpose of religion is to help us to commune with our Creator. Master says, anyone who deeply calms his mind and in silent devotion centers his being in the divine presence within shall behold the inner light. This is the promise of the Masters. As Jesus stated in the Beatitudes, they shall see God. And the first part of that, of course, is blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. And in the Gita, we heard the passage today, for whom that darkness of the soul is chased by light, splendid and clear shines, manifest the truth as if a sun of wisdom sprang to shed its beam of light. Later on in chapter 20, stanza 12 and 13, Krishna goes on to say, the inner light is supremely effulgent, brighter, it states later in the Gita, than 1,000 suns. Yet the inner light is not hurtful to the eyes, it is only thrilling to the soul. The soul knows it itself, knows that it is itself that light. As when one hears Om, one knows who he himself is, a part of that cosmic vibration. As the Om vibration plays upon the harp strings of one's very being, so also the light thrills one's consciousness with the awareness that it too is that light. This radiance, as from 1,000 suns, merges into multicolored rays in an ever-new display, issuing as if from a spherical fountain, its rays spraying outward from an endless number of points in space. The single spiritual eye in the forehead bestows on the yogi a spherical vision, its luminosity ever-changing, blissful, omnipresent. Yogananda said, you cannot drive out the darkness with a stick. If we want to see that light, we have to turn and face the light. We have to stop thinking of ourselves as sinners, stop beating ourselves up for all the things that we do wrong, and just turn and face the light. That's the way out of the darkness, is to meditate, to love God more deeply, to ask to be able to experience that light and to make that the entire focus of our life, so that we, like Ananda Ma, never turn our eyes away from God. Every moment, every day, offer every feeling, every thought, every action that we have, that we make, to Divine Mother. Bring her into everything you do, everything you say, everything you think, everything you feel, until there is no separation between you and her. And then you will know that you are that light. That is our birthright. That's where we're all heading. And with the blessing of the teachings that Yogananda has bring to us, we too can experience that light. And Master says, eventually, by deep inner communion with the divine light, the darkness will be banished from your consciousness. And when at last it vanishes, it will leave you forever, as though it had never been. May we all be one in that light one day. God bless you all.